Add to stream. All the information is right there below for you to register. We're going to have a powerful time together. And I will share screen. At the Collaborative. Share screen. On Saturday, August the 8th at 9. Application launch. Okay, and then where? Uh-huh. I don't see an audio. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Oh, you finna do it? Oh.
Is yes. Join the Collaborative U for our grand opening virtual launch and ribbon cutting ceremony. Hear a special message from Apostle Perry.
Word you have from God. There's power in that word, and that power will produce whatever God said is supposed to be in your life. And you got to stop talking yourself out of what God wants to do. You got to stop talking yourself out of your next level. Stop talking yourself out of your promotion. Stop talking yourself out of your increase, your upgrade, and your expansion, and your overflow. I'm telling you, this is the best year of your life.
This is Apostle Charles Perry, Senior Pastor, Founder, and Visionary of Word of Restoration International Church, located in Rochelle, Texas. Now, I am excited and I am looking forward to being the keynote speaker for the launch of the Collaborative U. Now, the masterclass is going to be entitled Arise and Build. Now, whether you're building a business, you're building a brand, whether you're building a ministry or family, it's time to arise and build. And you've been articulating, you've been talking about it, you've been dreaming about it. My God, you've even prayed about it. It's time now to arise and build. And in that masterclass, I'll be sharing principles, wisdom, and tools for kingdom stewardship. How do you steward the things that God has placed in your care? You know, as stewards, the Bible said it is required of stewards that we be found faithful. Are you faithful over the resources that God has given you so you can build whatever it is that He's placed in your heart? Now, you can register. All the information is right there below for you to register. We're going to have a powerful time together, and I will see you at the Collaborative U. That's going to be held on Saturday, August the 8th at 9 a.m. I'll see you at the Collaborative U.
Well, we did it. Technology is absolutely amazing, but because I'm not a technology savvy girl, it has been a bit of a fun thing. But guys, welcome to today's edition of the Collaborative U TV. I am your host today, Debra. My partner, Michelle Harden, is in the wings. Y'all, she came in, she swooped in, she saved us so that we can show you that amazing commercial at the beginning of this show. And sitting right next to me is the beautiful Debra Bell. Oh, Debra.
Welcome. Hello.
Amazing. So there's going to be a little bit of noise in my background. Sorry about that, guys. Got some things going on. But I did not want to just like skim over this time period. Like right now, we are in the throes of a season of change. And what better person to have on but a change agent herself? Oh my goodness. Debra F. Bell, the change agent. We are excited to jump into this conversation with you. So let's just start off with like, how did you get to this place? Like, how did you come to a place where you knew that you were going to help people in their transition and in their change?
That's a really good question, Dethea, and thanks to the CollaborativeU for having me on today. I think that I came to this point as I've gone through so many transitions myself. So understanding that there are times when our new beginnings are often defined by painful endings. And that's a quote by Lao Tzu, an ancient Chinese philosopher. So when we identify that new beginnings are often disguised as painful endings, I've had to learn now when there's a painful end to have expectation.
Ooh.
Yeah, because God does some amazing things through the process of pain. And what I recognize is that that's not a common thought that we often have. We're often trying to run away from the pain. We're often trying to alleviate the pain. We're often trying to figure out, how do I get out of this? Instead of, Lord, help me go through this.
You know what? You're absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right. And I don't want, and I know that I see you ready to roll, dive in, hit us with all of the 1-2 punches. And we are absolutely ready for that. I think that this is a time period where a lot of us are in the midst and in the throes of a lot of pain. I love what you said, you know, that at the end of painful seasons, change comes, you know, and we do not, like, we are the worst at going through things. There's some of us that have high pain tolerance, right? But some of us, we do not at all. So you mentioned that this was kind of sparked from you going through your own personal transition. What can you share with us about that? Because I know a lot of times it's really about relating to individuals and their own personal story. You know, the Bible says we overcome by, you know, the blood of the Lamb and the word of our own testimony. So while, you know, whatever you feel comfortable in sharing, and I know you're transparent, but whatever you feel comfortable in sharing, can you bring us into your life that way?
Okay. So I got to the point of being introduced to coaching, actually, as I was going through a very public and a very painful divorce. And in that, having to learn how to act in grace, and not just be ghetto, if I could put it that way.
You can.
Okay. Okay. And finding my strength in my faith to get through that situation, because being a very public figure at a church, at a very large church, and having to go through that process, experiencing the pain of it, and then still having to carry a public face, actually is probably what sent me to counseling.
Wow.
And in counseling, I uncovered some other pains that I'd never dealt with. The loss of my mother when I was 6 years old, having been molested as a teenager, and having never worked through those things. And many of those things may have been issues that caused problems in my marital relationship that just were not dealt with.
Right.
And I, at this point, I can own that those were probably some of the things that I brought into the relationship that created problems. So
Wait, before you move
mhm,
past that though, I think that that is a revelation that many people don't make until on the other side, right?
absolutely,
Yeah, and so I really want us to put a pin there and say that many of us through childhood trauma have brought things into our adult life that cause us to have some issues, you know, that if
absolutely,
we can be honest with ourselves, we can say that maybe we brought that into the job, we brought that into relationships, we brought that into our business worlds. And so I just didn't want to skip over that because someone needs to know, you know, that it's quite possible that there are childhood things, there are things that happen early on that could be a contributing factor to some of your you know, the things that don't satisfy you or don't play out perfectly now. I mean, thank you. So thank you for bringing up that point.
absolutely, absolutely. It is definitely one of the things that we don't consider. Most of us aren't very reflective, self-reflective. We can
Yeah.
see everybody else, but we don't see ourselves clearly.
Hmm.
And when you began to, in my part of my journey was asking God to be made whole. I did not want to go continue as a broken, divided person. I wanted to be made whole. And in that, that meant I had to uncover some of the layers. And that's where the work begins.
Yeah.
That's where it becomes very, it really is hard work because now you're going into those areas that still may be sensitive and you're having to rehash and really understand what happened, what it caused, and then figure out where do you go from here.
Yeah.
So that was part of that process for me, and it's part of what I help others to walk through in their times of transition and change. um, mhm,
Yeah. You mentioned that it was at that moment that you trying to navigate it and to um, you know, for lack of a better term, appear to be okay, right, amongst, you know, the your normal group, the church, you know, the people who knew you as a married person now coming into that divorce life. You know, a lot of times we do want to act like, hey, everything's gonna be okay, but that sent you to that help place, the counseling.
absolutely.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we we do seem to feel like we have to pretend everything is okay. Now, my question to you, because I'm a, you know, I'm a black woman and you're a black woman, right? And that's kind of like, you know, we black women have really been in the news recently. You know, the whether they're talking about the level of abuse or whether they're talking about you know, our strength or our perceived strength. Let's talk about that. As a Black woman and the stigma behind everything, what were you really thinking that made you say, I can't keep pretending, I got to go get help?
Yeah. What I recognized was at every point, especially as I began to pray and ask God for wholeness at work, at home, in friendships, I recognized that there were fractures created by how I handle things in all of those places. Let me give you an example. At work, and this translates, I'm a people pleaser. And so what I recognized at work was that I would rush to do things so that it was covered. And I had this high expectation for perfection, not excellence, perfection that was a driver. And it allowed me to begin to make mistakes, crazy mistakes that I then lied about to cover up and buy time so I could fix it. And so what I recognized was that's a fracture.
Wow.
And I had to figure out that I need help to get beyond this, because this is not how I need to handle this business side of what I'm doing.
And I like what you just said. You said you were going for perfection, not excellence.
Yeah.
Ooh. Now
and there's a difference.
There is a difference. Can you give us, like, what is the difference?
So in perfection, understanding that we will never achieve perfection. It's an illusion. And we're always striving and striving and striving, and we never get there. Nothing is perfect. And as humanity, there's nothing in us that's perfect. Jesus was the only perfect one. But we can strive for excellence. That is, that there's a standard for how I respond. There's a standard for the quality of my work. And that's different than perfection. And it's okay if I get to the end of the day and it's not all done. I schedule and I plan and I set the agenda for the next day to keep working. That's excellence. But perfection, it will drive you to work to 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning trying to get it done. So there's a distinct difference. And you don't have that high level of anxiety when you work in excellence as you do when you work out of perfection.
Yeah, I posted a affirmation, and I said, I'm imperfectly perfect. Yeah, because the truth is that, like, I'm perfect at being myself, imperfectly perfect. So that means that I'm, one of my eyes might be a little bit bigger than the other. My lips might, they might be a little, my teeth.
And that's okay.
Right.
Because that's me. That's you. That's you.
Yeah. And so we should be okay with the imperfectly perfectness of ourselves. Yeah. Imperfectly perfect. I love that. I love what you said. So once you came to the place where you recognized, okay, I'm going to need some help, get some assistance in this. That's another stigma in our community, right? If you go to counseling, you crazy for real. And that's just not true, right?
Absolutely.
I've been to counseling. You've been to counseling. And honestly,
all God's children need counseling.
Come on now. And it's funny because the very first counselor that I went to happened to be a Black woman. And she told me, she said, you're not crazy, right? I was like, oh, I'm not. She's like, no, honey, what you're going through is the same thing that everybody goes through. And so I thought that was very interesting because it was my first experience in counseling. And I really thought that they were going to agree with the fact that I thought I was going crazy, and I thought they were going to agree with me. And she was the furthest from that. So tell me, as far as, that counseling experience, what can you share with the audience that will, kind of get rid of that negative stigmatism that goes with it?
I think that one of the things that helped me be comfortable in the process of counseling, because my first encounter was with a Caucasian male who was a believer, but he was actually the one who identified that I had the aptitude for coaching. But he basically threw me in. So I was doing one-on-ones and I was doing group. And in group, one of the first things you have to do is talk about why you're there.
Wow.
So counseling will help you be able to identify what the real issues are, but also be able for yourself to talk through them with someone who can give you support and to give you some answers and tools to work with. And that's one of the things that we need. We need tools that we can work with to help us move past whatever the pain points were in our life. We need tools that we can use to help us as we navigate relationships. We need tools, and we don't have those. I didn't have those, any tools to help me maintain my marriage. I had nothing to work with. So,
and you're absolutely right. I think that as a culture, as a community of people, as an individual in that community of people, I will honestly say that we don't have a lot of the tools.
no.
That it's just something as a
Let me tell you what our tool has been for generations. What happens in the house, what stays in the house.
Yeah.
That's been our tool. And what that does, it allows those things to be buried. One incident on top of another incident on top of another incident, and nobody talks about it. And then those things, those issues began to fester and create activity and actions and behavior that we don't even know where they came from.
Absolutely. And then the world looks at us, right, from the outside, not understanding what you said, the tools that we've been given, right? And so their ability to understand, their ability to, what's the word, to be compassionate towards the Black woman, may not quite be there. Even the Black man, not really understanding what the Black woman has had to take on as a culture. And so I want to stay there, but if I do, I'm going to go down a path that I will not come back from. Because
Let me add one other thing before we move. The opposite is that we don't shut it down, but we're so vocal about who we are and about the behavior that our tagline is, this is who I am. And either you're going to accept me or not. And it's okay either way.
Absolutely.
And when in actuality,
you're gonna make me go down the road. You're gonna make me go.
Your behavior is a result of how you've been socialized and what you've been experiencing in your family of origin and in the community where you've been.
And that brings up a point, and you're gonna just make me drive down this little path, and so I'm gonna ride with you. You started it. I tried to get off the bus, but I'm gonna stay on with you. You're absolutely right. And I think that that two Black women having this conversation together will really open up the conversation to be had amongst our community of people as a whole. But you said something. Either we're from the school, because I'm a 70s baby. So either we're from the school of what goes on in the house stays in the house, right? Or we're from the school of, I'm not going to let you treat me like this, So we'll go from one extreme to the other. And, either we're silently dying, or we're using our mouths and our anger to lash out and to handle situations in other ways. And unfortunately, we've gotten some labels in this. And so let's deal with that, because you went to counseling, you received the tools that you need. And now I
received the tools, but it was hard work. There were places that had to be opened that I wasn't prepared to open. And
Right. And that's where I
understanding,
want to go, because I want you to,
yeah.
because I know that we can't coach and counsel people, without, but there are circumstances that we can kind of talk through that are regular circumstances for the Black woman. So right now we're in the midst of a season, right, in which
Mhm.
our vice president is being pushed in a way to pick a Black woman, right? And then we have those who are looking at the Black women that he has as choices, and they're saying, well, this one is to this and this one is to that, right?
Mhm.
Because if I'm looking at the candidates, I'm saying, she is a little, she's a little aggressive, but
But if she was a male, would the
come
same
on.
label be given to her?
And that's what I want to talk about. How do we as Black women stay true to who we are, but also recognize that there are some things that may be causing us to be a little unbalanced in our approach? Not saying that any of those candidates are, but I'm saying the reality is, you said it earlier, there were things you recognize that were causing you to deal with all areas of your life in a way that wasn't really serving you,
Mhm.
and raising you up to your higher self. What can we as individuals, what's our steps, like what
Okay.
inventory can we take, what can we do to even bring the awareness that
So
we need
I'm really just going to talk about one thing, because the word that you said is awareness. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier that we don't do is the self introspective work, because we first have to identify where the root of that issue came from.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I understand that after losing my mother, going from one family household to another family household, I just wanted to make everybody happy so I'd have a place to live.
Wow.
And that one single thing followed me into adulthood, that
Wow.
I wanted to be the good girl so everybody would be happy with me. Not that I would be okay, but that everybody else, and often that came at my own expense. And so you have to understand where the root of that thing comes from, so then you can address that. But just applying a salve over a large area is not going to get it, because what's needed for that area may just be air so that those cells can breathe and then heal.
Hmm.
What's needed may be that there's some alcohol applied, and alcohol burns, it hurts because it needs to be cleansed. So you can't just take one particular thing and say, oh, this is the answer. But it has to start with finding out what that issue is. So then you will know, do I need a salve? Do I need alcohol? Or do I just need to let this lay open and breathe? Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely, and eloquently said. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this is how I need to look at some of these things. You're absolutely right, because you're going to constantly run into situations, and every situation that you run into, you do have to introspectively look at it. I've learned that even taking a look at your day at the end of the day, don't wait months, years down the road, but review what happened in the day and say
But
and think
let's be clear though, because we were talking about the Black woman and
mhm.
how we can, what tools, what can we say, what can we advise that will help, and the help is that introspection, so you understand where that anger comes from, where that aggressiveness comes from, where that flip attitude comes from, because a lot of that is protection, self-protective mechanisms. But protection for what? What happened to you that caused you to know that you needed self-protecting? And so we have to now, instead of, as I mentioned, applying different kinds of things to the wound, we have to introspectively understand where the root is. So then we'll know what to apply to the root. And then, once you've gotten that straight, then you can do for those situations, because you'll look at situations differently once you understand what caused this for you, this behavior.
Wow. Ooh, okay, so I'm gonna come out of the Black woman because
Okay,
I'm gonna
let's
come
do that.
away
That's good.
only
That's good.
only because we could stay there, and I think
You
it
know
would
what?
be.
I have something, because I was just in a meeting with a friend of mine earlier today, and we
Mm-hmm.
decided to do a podcast targeting Black women, and the
Uh-oh.
title is, "Hey, you got a minute? Let's talk it out. Let's talk it out,"
Yeah.
because that's the place. We need a place where we can take a minute and just hash out the issues.
Let me ask you this, but do you that we're ready to do that?
I think there are some conversations that can be had that will be helpful. I think that I was talking with a friend of mine after Chris and I did our first It's Real Life podcast. And when she had sent me a text message, and when I called her, as soon as she heard my voice, she started crying. She said, "You don't understand. I was just talking to a friend about this issue of depression, seeking some answers, and your podcast gave me the answers I needed." So there's places where conversations are already happening. But
Right.
are they the best places for those conversations? Are there tools being shared? Is there authenticity, and is there openness? You know,
No, I like that. I like what you just said, because when I was thinking, are we ready? Um, I think the answer to that is yes, but then you added that extra layer to the fact that there are going to have to be special places for those conversations to happen. You may not want to just snatch the band-aid off, right, just expose it. So it may be through a podcast setting where they don't really know that you're on the other end of that. They don't know who's listening, right? Because lives, Facebook lives, people are actually able to see you are watching,
right,
right? And so if you're
right,
watching, then it has to be determined that you're one with the problem. And so you might not be ready to expose
right.
that part of it. So thank you. Podcasting, absolutely. And
And
just a thought.
retreat. We also have a virtual retreat coming up towards the mid fall.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's get into the change portion of this conversation,
Okay,
because we're in the midst of change like none other. I
absolutely.
mean, our lives have changed drastically since March. Our
Mhm.
normals have changed. Everything about us has changed. Um, and I asked the question, like, are you really embracing, are you really ready for change? Let's talk about that. In your professional opinion, what are you seeing in this changing climate?
You know what? One of the things that I'm seeing is people saying, "When this is over."
Ah.
I think we need to stop. We've been in this since, I'll say, March. That's 5 months.
Right.
We've been in this. And how long does it take for a habit to form?
21 days.
So some habits have already been formed that
Ooh.
when this is over, they're not going to change. So
Wow.
we're already in our new normal. As much as that is an oxymoron, how do you have a new normal? But we're already in it. I heard the apostle talk about this is the best time of your life. This season is the best season because this is the time where you can learn some new skills. You can jump out of your comfort zone and do some things that you thought that you'd never do. This is the time when you can challenge yourself to be better, to make some different decisions about your life, because some things are just on hold right now. But other things that are full of activity. And so I think this is the best time. The change is necessary class that I'll be teaching in the intensive that will go along with that points to the fact that life can throw you curveballs that cause normalcy to appear unsustainable. We didn't know how we were going to make it through, but guess what? We're 5 months in.
Right.
So we're making it through. And what are you seeing? You're seeing more and more podcasts, more and more Facebook Lives, people having conversations, people talking about things. You're seeing with the racial unrest, you're seeing protests and marches in a way that is reflective of the 60s that haven't happened in 20, 30 years.
Right.
And so this is a season in the middle of a global pandemic. This is happening. So this is a season for change. This is a great time for change.
I love what you said, because a lot of people are stuck in when this is over. Yeah. But you said earlier that, and I love Ayanla. She said sometimes you just got to sit in it. You know, you just got to sit in it. And I don't think people are sitting in the current situation. And the longer it goes on, you not embracing that this is a current new normal, right, only adds to anxiety, only adds to the problem. Am I correct?
You're right, because it's that fear of the unknown. Am I going to get COVID? School is getting ready to start. How many parents are concerned about their kids and they're fearful? But what you have to do is pray, take the necessary precautions, and make sure that you are doing the right things. You can't control other people, but you can control you and your situation. So the choices that you make have to be in that vein. But even so, with the CollaborativeU, you and Renee struck out in this COVID-19 season to do something amazing. And you're doing it. Did you just say the CollaborativeU TV?
I did.
Well, yeah, we didn't have that at the beginning, but it's here now. And so I've learned new skills during this time. So this is the time to take the bull by the horn and allow change to happen. Be intentional about what happens and what you do in this season, because it could lead to some great things occurring in your life in this season.
Absolutely. So you bring up something else. Great changes, embrace them, and new things can come out of it. Let's talk about that, because a lot of times people think change is a negative, right? They think it leads them to a brick wall. They think it leads them to a place of no return. But you just mentioned that change can actually catapult you into a new season, catapult you into something far greater than you could ever even imagine. So absolutely. How can we get those, how can we change that? Change that mindset about change?
There are three things that I talk about in this particular intensive. The first thing is we have to put the past in its place. There are too many of us who are trapped in the pain of yesterday.
Yeah.
So the class helps you to put some different categories around what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
You're going to call it out. You're going to identify it, but you're going to put that in its place. There's some things you should have learned back then. You're going to take some time to look back. There's some people you need to forgive from back then. There's some things that you need to take on from the past. And there's some stuff and people you need to let go from the past. So that's one thing. The second thing is learning to deal with self-limiting thinking. We are trapped with how we visualize people, the world, and ourselves. And when we can bring balance to those three things and how we see them, not as from a stuck position, but from a position of the world is open and I can achieve whatever I want to achieve if I would just put the work in.
Yes.
You know, understanding that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. There's nothing wrong with you, just like that counselor told you. You're not crazy. So it's all about how we think of those things, and so we'll talk about that. And 5 helps for eradicating false beliefs about you, the world, and about others. And then the last thing, growing through transition. Growth has to be intentional. And so we're going to talk about 3 steps to take in order to implement intentional growth.
Wow. Wow. You know, as you were talking about that, the first thing that came to my mind was that caterpillar to a butterfly. Man, that caterpillar
that metamorphosis. Absolutely.
Yes. And I think
it's a process.
It is. And it's a beautiful process, because what a caterpillar could do, that might have been good. You know, they can crawl up a tree, they can do those things. But once you transition to the butterfly, your look changes. You literally go from a green furry creature to yellow, blue, purple. I mean, whatever your type is. And so you literally, in that transition, it isn't easy. You become something hard, on your heart, on the outside, on the inside, you going through all kind of physical changes, right? But then when you break out of that shell, the beauty of who you are really comes about. And I think if I'm listening to you correctly, that's what you're really talking about. You're talking about embracing change to the place where that change forces you to become the better version of yourself.
Yeah. And then the question becomes, are you willing to do the work? That's the big question, because work is required. Are you willing to do the work? Transformation doesn't just happen. It's a process. So are you willing to do the work? That's what's required.
Wow. So I know you've been giving us little tidbits about the class and the intensive that's coming up, but I know that on the CollaborativeU, you are launching a intensive at the end of this month for everyone who is literally resisting change, or in the throes of change and just haven't been stabilized in it. Tell them about how this class is going to help them.
Okay. So I think the big thing about this class is I'm big on, as you could tell, self-reflection. This is going to deal with you. It's not about anybody else. It's not about who did what. It's about you and you taking the necessary steps to help move yourself forward. Can you move yourself forward? With God's help, all things are possible. You can. What's stopping most of us is us. It's how we think. It's how we believe. It's how we've been taught. It's what we say. And so we're going to deal with those things in such a way that opens up, hopefully, a paradigm shift so that you see things differently. And then you'll be able to move in new and different ways.
Absolutely.
That's what happens. That's what I believe will happen in this class.
And when will this class take place?
So it's a 2-day intensive, the 26th and 20, or is it 3 days?
Well, you're gonna actually do some live Q&A and coaching, correct?
Right.
So really 3 technically.
Okay. So the 25th and 26th of August are the intensive course days, and then the 22nd, 7th starts the beginning of the coaching piece of it. So attached to the class, you will have the opportunity for some one-on-one coaching to help you as you implement some of the things that have been taught in the class. There'll be coursework over the 2 days, but then how do you apply that to your life? What things do you need to look at and change? Where are you really going to start your work? So those are some of the things that we can talk about in the coaching piece.
Absolutely. And I love what you said. Like it's time out for us to be thinking ahead, when this is over, because this could span another 6 months, another year, who knows? And if you haven't created a safe place for you to reflect and to bring and to deal with the current change, then coming out of this could be very hard. I mean, we're seeing on the news where people who are in positions where you would think, well, you should be okay, you're a superstar, you're an artist, you're this, you're that,
Your
and they're
government official.
having a good time with this change. Like, literally, we're seeing people attempt suicides. We're seeing people have breakdowns on lives. We're seeing individuals in some of the most horrific places, and we would think they should be stable. Talk about that a little bit. Like, why do you think that that's really happening in this pandemic?
There's a passage in the Bible that talks about a man who built his house on unstable ground.
Whoa.
And when our foundations are not stable, when the winds come, when the waves rise, it can cause our very foundations to be shaken.
Wow.
But when we built our foundation on the rock, then when the winds come, we're not shaken. There's stability because we're rooted in something that has the ability to hold us when we can't hold ourselves. And that's our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So that's a big part of what happens in pandemics, in seasons where there's this kind of trauma going on, where this high anxiety is happening. And so in the class, we'll talk some about building that foundation on the rock, because a rock is better than the sand.
Come on
The
now.
sand is going to sink. If that's what you're building on, you're going to sink. But when you're built on the rock, you're going to stand. You're going to be able to weather the storm. You're going to be able to get past this. Even when the waves are high and it feels like they're going to overtake you, you can rest assured that your foundation is stable and it's going to hold you up. It's going to bear you up, even in the winds and the rain.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. So true. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that piece, because I don't think that we're really clear sometimes on what we are actually building our hopes on, and what we're using as our support system. Because once that's removed, whether it be the stability of your job, whether it be the stability of the person you're in relationship with, whether it be the stability of your finances, where you are currently, when change comes, if there is no real root system, if you don't have a real foundation that says this may go, but then that just means it opens up a door for something else to come.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Then it'll definitely shake you to the point. And if you don't have the right, which is what I want to transition into next, and if you don't have the right support system, then it becomes very, very difficult. So let's talk about that, because you did mention that you do counseling and coaching in this area.
I do coaching. I don't do counseling. Now, I will make referrals for counseling.
Yes,
coaching. I have some good
yes,
therapists.
Absolutely. But you do coaching,
but I do coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And so
tell about that.
The coaching that I do helps to walk with you, give you accountability as you're working toward achieving identifiable goals.
Right.
So we're not just running around in circles. We are pinpointing specific things that you want to accomplish, and then putting action items in place so that you achieve those goals. So I guess you could identify a lot of what I do as performance coaching, but
Mm.
in different ways. Performance in the sense of there's a goal, there's an identified goal, there are action items, and then there's the success when you achieve those goals. So that's how I present coaching. There will be an intake form to complete. There will be classes for you to actually do, and then there'll be some one-on-one time that we spend together.
Absolutely. Well, we're running this. We're doing this video and this interview live. This interview will absolutely come out again. We will schedule it with the link for you guys to register for this course. As soon as that link is ready, and it should be this week, we'll drop that link in this course. We'll also please take a look at and like our page, the Collaborative U, the Collaborative U on Facebook, Collaborative University, the Collaborative University on Instagram, and then the collaborativeu.com, where you can find out about this course and many of the other courses from our amazing team of thought leaders across the nation. These are some of the best guys. When I tell you God is good, He will handpick them for you. So for our launch, let's not forget our launch is this Saturday. Our live
Yes.
virtual ribbon cutting and launch will happen this Saturday, August the 8th at 9 a.m. Our keynote speaker is none other than Dr. Charles Perry with Word of Restoration in Rocheron, Texas. And oh boy, y'all, the theme is Arise and Build. And all of this goes hand in hand, because in the midst of change, it's time for you to arise and build the next thing, build the next version of you, whatever that means. Whatever life has thrown at you. My mom used to tell me, make lemonade, honey, make lemonade.
That's
When they
it.
throw you lemons, make lemonade. Put that sugar with it and make lemonade. So, Deborah, oh my goodness, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us on Collaborative UTV today. I'm so excited about what you bring to the market, what you're bringing to the table. And we're just looking forward to good things. Change is inevitable and change is necessary. On our way out, is there anything else you'd like to say to the
So
audience?
yes, please check me out on, along with Chris Davis, on our podcast. It's Real Life Podcast on Facebook. You can find us on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and many of the other sites where you listen to podcasts. Our most recent one that just dropped yesterday is The Veil of Grief. Also, you can catch me on my website, www.askp3coaching.org. askp3coaching.org.
Amazing. Well, we'll drop all of that information also in the comments in our lives. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click that bell so that when we go live on Collaborative UTV, you will be notified. Okay,
Yes.
awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's Collaborative UTV. We will see you next week. I'm not going to tell you who our guest is. You just going to have to show up and find out. Awesome and amazing. Thank you guys. You have a great rest of your day. And again, don't forget, like, click, subscribe, share. Like, click, subscribe, share. Share this information. There's got to be someone in your vicinity that needs it.
Yes.
There's got to be a sister around you. The strongest people are the ones that you won't even know anything is wrong, and those are the ones that need it. So do not be afraid to post this, to share it on your page, because there is someone, I guarantee you, that needs it. All right. Until next time, I'm Thea Aldridge, co-founder of the Collaborative U and co-host of the Collaborative UTV. Look forward to speaking with you next time. And we're out. Bye bye.
Bye bye.